Hi everyone, Mike Stuchiner, Master Herbalist here, and welcome to yet another episode of the Master Herbalist Hour with Mike Stuchiner, Master Herbalist, and Bones. Bones is looking a little shaky, isn't he? A little tilted, his knees are sort of up in his face, but be cool. Bones is all right. Bones hit the kava a little bit too hard last night, so, he just can't handle his kava very well. But I'm just going to let him do his thing over there because today's video has no disclaimer. And the reason why there's no disclaimer is because this is in response to a very interesting conversation I had with someone who is a fellow herbalist who recently finished their herbal education and who I had a phone conversation with, I guess it was about a week or so ago. The video is not directly to them, it's just I thought I'd tell you what happened because I found it to be a very fascinating scenario. So when we were talking, he had asked me, if you had one piece of advice for a fellow herbalist, what would it be? And I guess let me first start by saying I would certainly not consider myself to be the most successful herbalist in the world or even close to it. I have a real passion for what I do. I love what I do, and I'm always open-minded to learning and getting better at what I do because my goal, like I believe everyone's goal should be, and I don't care, to be quite honest and frank about it, this video should not just be for herbalists. This should be for doctors, lawyers, acupuncturists, chiropractors, accountants, stockbrokers, people who shine shoes for a living, people who are survival experts and who make weaponry out of rocks and twigs and shit like that. I don't care what you do. If you're an artist, if you're a musician, the number one piece of advice I would give to anybody who wanted my advice would be to master your craft. So what does that mean, master your craft? Because let's be honest, the word master, that's a pretty big word, It means like you've hit the top, or you're a pretty smart cat, right? Or dog, or chicken, or turtle. Or bones, you're a smart boner. There you go. See what I did there? Of course you do. So I'm going to start with some advice I was given when in discussing this, how to master your craft, whatever it may be. I'm going to start by telling a story about, I retired from competing in powerlifting. I don't know, I guess it's a little bit over 2 years now. And I remember when I first got into the sport 27 years ago. And I guess now it's 29 because of the 2-year gap. But what was really interesting to me was that I got a couple of really great pieces of advice from some of my training partners when I was first starting, okay? And those two pieces of advice were, one, become a student of the sport, okay? Which is really no different than saying master your craft, okay? And the other one was don't be a jack-off of all trades, okay? And what that means is that you can't be good at everything. So be great at something, okay? It's that simple. Because the reality is that being great at one thing is no easy task, okay? And if you can achieve being great at one thing, you've really done something spectacular. Because chances are most people are never going to be spectacular at multiple things, okay? They'll be great at one thing and then they'll be at everything else. And that's usually how it works. Now, that's not to say there aren't spectacular or special people out there. I mean, let's be honest. You got some of these amazing people like Elon Musk and Bill Gates, who are these super high intellect, hardworking individuals who have multiple businesses. But keep in mind, they're only great at the primary thing that they love to do, which is create something. And they've clearly mastered that. So, golf clap to them. Okay, so what does it mean to become a student of the sport? Well, what that basically meant was that if I want to be the best powerlifter I could possibly be and get to an elite level, which I did, okay, then it's really important that you are always willing to learn and evolve with what you're doing, whether it's the training method that you use or whatever it may be, whether it's your training method, your supplementing method, your diet, your recovery methods. As long as you're willing to learn and continue to evolve within those spaces and become a student of what you do and try and get a greater understanding of why, the whys and the wherefore thous of what it is you're trying to do, then you'll always continue to make progress. It's when you stop learning, or more importantly, when you are no longer willing to continue to learn, that you sort of stop making progress, that you sort of shut on down, and you're sort of, I almost want to say that's when progress comes to a halt. Okay. Now, are there rare occasions where that actually, where you can continue and have a willing desire to want to make progress and learn, and yet you're still at a halt? Yes, those things do happen, and that is always a possibility. It's happened to me many times in my life. But that does not change the fact that as long as you're willing to continue to learn, the ability to be able to figure out how to make progress will always be there. Okay? So, I think I've been pretty clear about what it means to become a student of the sport. And when we talk about not being a jack off of all trades, that was a great line that was given to me again when I was a very young powerlifter, because again, you often see these people who claim to be, I compete in this sport, but then you see them playing basketball and riding horses and doing 20 other things, and none of those things have a direct correlation with you wanting to be great at that one thing. So it becomes this scenario in your head where you start questioning, well, how great is this person? Now, of course, I just want to be clear that there are a lot of factors of what makes an athlete or anyone else great at what they do. Genetics, the amount of hard work they're willing to put in, and so on and so forth. So there could be factors where you have a great athlete who also likes to mess around in 4 or 5 other different sports and still becomes one of the top athletes in his or her primary sport. But it doesn't really, it doesn't change one major fact, okay? That person is often never great at any of those other things. They're still only going to be great at that one thing, okay? So, part of mastering your craft is about the idea. So let me talk about what I mean by mastering, okay? Because again, I get it. It sounds like you're at like this peak level when you talk about mastering. That's not really the case, okay? When I speak of mastering, there are a few primary rules that I throw into this idea, okay? Number one is, whatever you do, whatever you're great at or want to become great at and are working to become great at, so for an herbalist, whether it's formulating or being able to understand how to make the best tinctures that anyone will ever use, which goes into understanding the individual plants, what percentage of those plants are water soluble versus alcohol soluble, and and putting together all this information to make what you would maybe call one of the ultimate tinctures, okay, or a great formula. Great formulas, you have to understand synergy, you have to understand ratios and percentages of herbs in order to know how much of each thing that you want to put in. That comes with time, experience, and practice. Practice, 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 practice. That's what it comes with, and that doesn't change. But the thing that's really important is to always keep in mind you don't know everything, and you will never know everything. I know herbalists that were in the field for 40 years and they studied 2 herbs, and even with focusing just on those 2 herbs, they still did not know everything about them, because it's, to be honest with you, it's almost legitimately impossible to know every single thing there is to know about 1 herb or 2 herbs or a group of herbs, okay? Which is really important. But like I said, don't think you know everything, okay? Because again, if you believe you know everything, in your mind you're going to say you have nothing else to learn, and guess what? Progress will halt. I'll do that again. See, I did it with my other hand. Even though I'm a lefty, I did it with my right hand. So don't think you know everything, because chances are you don't, okay? I've never met an herbalist, I've never met a lawyer, I've never met a doctor, I've never met a really a baker, an artist, anyone else who knows everything. I also am a writer. I'm not just an herbalist. I create content. I've written books. I've written hundreds and hundreds of articles. I've written hundreds of product descriptions for different websites. And the reality is even as a writer, you're constantly evolving and becoming a better writer and finding the way that works best for you to write. I'll tell you something else. I've had some professional editors edit some of my work, and I have to tell you something. I find it so interesting how editing, other than punctuation and spelling, when we talk about like content editing, about the flow and other things, it's really incredible how different editors have very different styles, and they all are great. So sometimes sometimes people would even come to the conclusion that when we're talking about writing and editing, it's as much subjective as it is objective. It really truly is, because I've seen multiple editors do certain things with my work where the end result was quite drastically different, but they were both spectacular end results. So there you go. Go figure. When you're attempting to master your craft, there is no end game. Remember how I was talking when I was discussing anxiety and panic issues, how there's no end game, there's only work in progress? Well, it's the same thing when, when you're mastering or attempting to master what it is you do or your craft. There is no end game. There's just the continuous learning to get better, to tweak things, to make things a little bit better. Mastering means that you have this true desire to focus on something, this true desire to not just focus on it, but to constantly make it better, because there is no such thing as it being the best. The best is a facade. The idea, it's the idea that there's a lot of things that are more in our mind, like the idea of feeling or being secure, and then something like, I'm born and raised in New York, or something like 9/11 happens. You realize how it can all be taken away in a heartbeat. Lives, money, all that stuff. There's no such thing as, how should I say, the top end, because in life there's no glass ceiling. Rich people can continue getting richer. Smart people can continue getting smarter. And that's why there is no end game with anything. It's just a work in progress. Everything is a work in progress. Okay? So when I also speak of mastering, What I'm also referring to, another aspect of mastering your craft is having a really great deep-rooted understanding in the work you do and being able to apply your knowledge to create something from it. So if you're a great writer and you understand your craft, the true ground roots of your craft, and apply it to your work is going to be great. That's all there is to it. Your work is going to be great. And contrary to popular opinion, great is defined in a lot of ways. I mean, you don't need to be, if you've written a book and you're not on the New York Times top 10 bestseller list, it doesn't mean your work isn't great, or it doesn't mean that your work isn't worthy of it. It just didn't make it there, you know? Those things, again, the word great is quite subjective, unless it's something that's unless it's, for example, let's say you'll take powerlifting. If the best squat is 1,300 pounds, okay, and you squat 1,305, there's nothing subjective about it. Objectively, you are the best squatter. That's it. But when we're talking about when you look at someone's writing, or you taste a chef's food, or whatever it may be, when you say it's good or bad or it's great, that's really more of an opinion and a subjective scenario. But when you've squatted 1,305 and the best squat is a 1,300 pound squat, there's nothing subjective about it other than the judging of the depth. But the achievement itself says clearly you're the best squatter. Where I'm going with that ramble is basically the idea of, in order to be able to master something, or in order to be able to achieve a level of mastery in your area, you have to have a great understanding of what you're doing, or of what it is you're trying to do, and being able to then apply that and create something great from that deep-rooted understanding. So I hope that this was helpful to people, and I hope that the fella who I had the conversation with last week, or about 10 days ago, finds this video, or I can send it to you. I guess I can always text it to you. But either way, I hope this was really helpful, and I hope that you understand that this piece of advice, again, goes across the board. It doesn't matter if you're a doctor, a lawyer, an acupuncturist, or anything else. Whatever you are, if you're a carpenter, an electrician, if you create things with your hands and you build beautiful things, whatever you do, follow the basic understanding of what it means to master your craft. You want to be great at something, be great at something. Don't be great at everything, because that is a truly unattainable goal. Mike Stuchiner, Master Herbalist, signing out. Bones, signing out. See you next time.